Oh, I was just going to ask you if you're recording it.
Yes, I decided to.
Yes, good.
Yep. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I am so thankful that you guys could join us today. My name is Jennifer Scheich, and I'm a member of the LPC Board of Directors and have enjoyed getting to be able to be involved with helping get our coffee and collaboration chats together. Just a few quick housekeeping details for those of you who are popping on now. Just a reminder that down in the bottom left-hand corner is a chat bubble, and if you click on that, it will open up the conversation bar on the left-hand side of your screen, so you guys can be typing questions as they come to mind, and I'll keep track of those and be sure to ask our speakers after they do their presentation here in the beginning. Sorry. No, Katie, I cannot see you. She's having a little trouble getting on board today. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the first half of our presentation this morning. As you all know, we have a new wonderful system to be able to enter our critique contest entries this year, and so I'm going to turn it over now to Diane Johnson and Grace Taylor to introduce themselves and give us a little walkthrough of the new process.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sorry, I'm getting an email out to the board real quick. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day here in Fort Worth, Texas. Wish you all could be here with me. Grace is on also. She's a little bit under the weather, so she didn't want to have her face on, but she is going to be around to help me if there are any questions that I can't answer, because she's the one who has set up our new system. This system is called Submittable, and it's something that we did a little research on, and it's also what ACT uses. So for those of you who have been a judge for ACT, you might be familiar with it. It's a very good system in that when we were setting it up, I mean, it can do a lot of different things. I think the main thing is it's very simple. So we don't want to overcomplicate anything. And so Grace and I, when we were developing the kind of the guidelines and the rules to help you go through it, we just literally sat here and we thought through everything that you would be needing to know as you went through the steps. So just know it's very, very simple. Okay, so this is the website. Of course, this is in many different places, so don't feel like you have to write it down. Go ahead to the next screen or slide, Jennifer. Okay, so this is where you can find it. If you go to the home page, and then I've got it circled, where you'll go to 2016 contest info, and then go ahead and hit the next. And that is a hot link, so you can just click on that, and it takes you right into the system. Now, I also have it circled where it says download the, what does it say, contest rules, I guess. And that is a very simple 3 pages. And I would recommend that you print that out first and read through it. And again, this has simplified it from the past. We used to have about 4 or 5 pages, and now we're only down to 3. So, okay, so when you go through it, if you'll download those, read through that, everything on that website or on that page on that website is also what you're downloading. So if you're wanting, you don't have to download it. Okay, go ahead. Okay, this is what it will look like when you first click on it. That's all that you see. I mean, it doesn't say put your name or anything in. It doesn't do that until you start to submit. Jennifer, let's go ahead and go live. And while you're, go ahead and go live. For the rest of you, while she's doing that, again, all of the entries are listed in numerical order, and they're also listed on that submittable page. So let's go to it.
Can you see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yep. I'll point out now, while we're getting into it, there is not a place for you to have to pay. I mean, yes, you do have to pay, but you will not be submitting any type of payment information on it. We will be invoicing you. And I'll tell you the reason for that is obviously Submittable makes their money from transactions and credit card charges, but that also costs us money. So we have figured out that if we invoice you, and you can pay by credit card, but we're going to do it in a different system. So we're just trying to, this is a big part of our financial, of our budget. So anywhere where we can cut some, where we can make a little bit more money with not having to pay extra fees, that's what we want to do. Okay, pick a category, Jennifer. And she has already got an account, so it will be a little bit different. But
do I need to remember that?
Or else you can.
Yeah, okay.
Do you remember what it was when we did it the other day?
Maybe. Okay.
And you can just put X's. And you'll note that all of these are a required field. You won't be able to move on until you do submit. And then with the appropriate
PDF, right?
Yeah, either a PDF or a JPEG, depending on, obviously, if it's a photo, And so then you just browse, find the file, and then submit. And that's all you have to do. Now, to enter the next category or another one, you just go back to categories.
Let's go for the top.
There you go.
Oh,
oh, okay. Now on this one, category 1, it does require you to send in hard copies of the magazine. So that is the only one where you actually will physically send us an item. Everything else is uploaded. So she's going to do that. It's also, the most improved it's our highest honor, and it also is $50 per entry, while the others are $30. Okay, so now she has submitted 2. So now, basically, you're done. You don't have to do anything else, but if you want to go up where she's going to the dashboard and click on whatever you want, but My Submissions, and that's going to pull up a list of when we practiced this the other day, but this is a list of what you've entered, and then you can download that into a CSV file, for Excel, and then you can keep that for your records. We will also be receiving that information, and once we've got all that, then we will invoice you for the amount. The deadline is April 20th. Now, again, since this is a little bit different, you could obviously be submitting up until 11:59 on April 20th, which just happened before. But we won't have been able to have invoiced you. So on April 21st, we'll take everything that we've gotten up until midnight, and we'll invoice you, and you'll have 7 days to get us either your check or give us your credit card information. And that's how simple it is. I mean, this is, again, we don't want to overcomplicate this. So are there any questions? Perfect. Your dues do have to be paid, and we can accept them at the same time. We don't have to have 2 different payments. Everything has to have been published in 2015, January 1 to December 31st. And I don't think I see anything else that is not in the rules or the guidelines to mention. We already have entries in, so we know the system works.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have more questions about that as people think about it in the next part of our session. Great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Okay.
Oh.
Is there anything here? Sorry.
Yeah. That's what I just covered, I guess.
Yep. Okay. All right, so next we have Katie Maupin. She's the Director of Marketing and Communications at the National Swine Registry, and she's going to tell you a little bit about their shop and give you a few tips from her perspective and experiences so far.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And I actually can't see the slides that are presenting right now.
Oh,
It says that I have a network error, so it
okay.
keeps blinking back and forth. So I have a copy of them in front of me, and it shouldn't be a problem, but you guys might have to bear with me a little bit. I apologize.
No problem.
But as Jennifer said, I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the National Swine Registry. And if you go to the first slide called Life on the Edge, that just kind of gives us a little bit of background about the Seed Stock Edge, which is NSR's main publication. So with the Seed Stock Edge, basically a team of 3 people, including myself, design and write all the editorial for the magazine, and we're creating at least half the ads that show in there. So when you're putting so much work and that into one magazine, and you guys are the main people that do it, and kind of the main voices of the magazine, it kind of gets a little hard at times to keep from getting barn blind. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with showing or that, but barn blind essentially means that you think you have the greatest one until you get out and go to the show. And if you go to the next slide, I think that's one of the biggest advantages, at least for the Seed Stock Edge, in entering the LPC contest, because we get to see how the work that we've been doing all year kind of stacks up among the peers. So it's easy to get kind of in a rut or look at your own magazine and feel that it's really improving in certain areas, or that there's maybe no room for improvement in other areas, and it kind of keeps you humble, I guess, to enter the contest and look and see what other editors and industry professionals are doing throughout the country. When you have success in the contest, I feel like it really builds credibility for your publication, for your agency, or for your business through those awards. So it's one thing to say, well, the Seed Stock Edge is one of the best magazines, in the country when it comes to feature articles. I mean, anybody can say that, but it's nice to be recognized by your peers and by a professional organization, and that'll just give you more credibility with your business. I think probably the most important reason to enter the contest, though, is just to share ideas with other people. I don't know how many times I've sat through the critique and the results and actually seen some ideas that we could take back and use for the seed stock, or visited with people about stories that they've had that were successful. So I think that's really important part of it. Now, if you could change the slide, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I must have been in like a show cattle or show livestock state of mind when I put together this presentation, because when I was trying to think of tips and tricks for people to use, all I could think were of the 3 R's of entering. So if anybody showed cattle, you probably heard the 3 B's of showing cattle, which was brush, brush, and brush. In my opinion, the 3 R's for entering are simply read, read, and read. And that would be to read work that has been successful in the past. I know last year I was able to get some copies of some stories that were really successful, and read other people's styles, read other people's thoughts, look at different covers that won, read the reasons that they won, and I think that just helps you get kind of a perspective of where your work is in the industry, and maybe even get some ideas of how you can improve. Then the next read would just be simply read the contest rules and regulations. They're not overly difficult, but I know it's always good to refresh your memory, since it's just something you do once a year. And especially this year, I know some of those rules and regulations have changed slightly, so it would be a good time to print those off and kind of get a refresher on it. And then last is just read your own entries. When we enter stuff for the seed stock, we read those entries like we've never read them before. Like this is just a fresh piece that had been placed upon our desk. So each one of those stories gets edited with a red pen. We look for any mistakes that we might have missed the first time around, anything too terribly embarrassing, of course, we wouldn't want to enter. So it gives us kind of, fresh eyes onto those pieces, and it kind of gives you a chance to have stepped back from it a while and really evaluate how you feel about that particular piece. And then I guess my last tips are just the do's and don'ts of the contest that I've kind of learned over the last few years. And the first is simply visit with other editors, designers, and professionals. I think, like I had mentioned before, that this is probably one of the best parts of the contest is it lets you see what other people in the industry are doing. It kind of gives you an even non-biased playing field to look at your work and see kind of where it stacks up and where you need to improve. And that goes along with the next point, which is do review all the contest notes and suggestions. Some of those judges spend a great deal of time writing up their critiques and the packets that we get at the end of the contest, and those are always valuable to revisit. If they didn't feel strongly about something, they probably wouldn't have taken the time to write it down. Even if you weren't in the top 3 or weren't in the stories mentioned, it's always good to review, what they're looking for, where their priorities are, what they think constitutes good work. It's just good to kind of go back and get a refresher course on it. And then the last point would be look up those successful entries, as I mentioned before. Go and talk to a writer who maybe won a category and see if they would send you a copy of that story. Maybe look up the Most Improved magazine. As Diane said, that's one of the most prestigious awards, and see, if they redesigned what went into the process, if they overhauled their editorial, how'd they come to that decision. Just visit with peers, and I think that's really, really valuable. And then 3 quick don'ts would be, when you're making these entries, don't forget the basics of good writing and advertising. I know sometimes we all kind of get stuck in the rut, or, for example, here at the seed stock, when breeders send us ads, they're hardly like the picturesque, back to the basics textbook version of an ad. Some of them don't even want headlines; they just want their, farm name. But that doesn't necessarily constitute, a sound advertisement if it doesn't have supporting copy and unique selling points and a strong visual and a good headline. So sometimes looking back at those basic points will actually help you bring your publication further. And we try to look at all the basics when we go through the magazine each year at the seed stock to make sure that we have those bases covered, especially before we enter. And then don't get discouraged if the entries or that aren't quite in your favor. I mean, we're competing with amongst our peers and on a national stage. So if it doesn't make it in the top 3, just kind of look over the critique, don't get too discouraged, and just keep trucking forward. And then last is, but don't be too proud to take a good look at your own work. I think the biggest thing the seed stock has got out of the contest is it keeps us humble each year, and we're able to go through all this information, the contest winners, advice from our peers, maybe notes from the judges, and we're able to reevaluate our magazine each year and try to keep improving. So I think those are kind of the main points and the quick tips that I have for you guys.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to Todd Domer. Todd is the editor of Kansas Stockman.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. Just to give you some of my responsibilities here at KLA, which are all communications related. We put out the monthly Kansas Stockman, a weekly newsletter by the title of KLA News and Market Report. We also do radio programs on about 40 stations a week. We have a weekly television segment. We have a really strong social media presence thanks to Scarlett Hagens on our staff, who also manages our website, which is dynamic, and we do media relations on behalf of the industry. So we've got our hands full here, but we're especially proud of what we do with the Kansas Stockman and the KLA newsletter, because we do invest quite a bit of time in those 2 publications, and the members tell us that they really like both of those publications. So just to give you an outline of what I'm going to talk about here, I'm going to discuss choosing entries, how we use the critiques from the contest, and then talk about an entry from last year's contest. We've been participating in the LPC contest since I came here in 1985, and as I look back here the last couple of weeks, it looks like they started to put entries in the contest a couple of years before that. So 30 plus years anyway that we've been participating in the contest. As far as choosing entries, we have a 3-person staff here in communications, and the way we go about it is to circulate the magazines from whatever year you're entering. In this case, it would be from 2015, and also the newsletters, and everybody takes a look at what they think is some of our best work and marks those, and then where those opinions intersect, those usually turn out to be our entries for the contest. So maybe one suggestion I would have is to have several people help in the selection process, whether they're on your staff or whether they're outside that circle. I think that's a pretty good practice. Sometimes the hardest part for us is deciding which category a story fits into. And I kind of look at that as like filling out your NCAA bracket. There are really no right or wrong answers, and even the experts don't know best. So there's usually a couple of different places that those stories will fit, and we just try to determine which one is best. As far as using the critiques, we try to view it as constructive criticism, and we actually hope that some of the judges give us some kind of criticism that we can use. Sometimes, as Katie mentioned, we learn as much from other critiques that are done for other publications as we do from those that pertain to our own. So that's really important, I think, to sometimes sit through the process of those awards being presented and listen to some of those critiques, and then take a look at them after the awards presentation is over as well. We do take those suggestions that judges make into consideration without really using them as the basis for wholesale changes. That's one person's opinion, and it's valuable to us, but you don't really want to be making big changes in your publications based on one opinion. So if you think that opinion's valid, maybe you want to go out and seek some further counseling and see if somebody else has the same opinion, and that might be the basis for making changes. We also report the results from the contest through our magazine and newsletter as member sellback, and again, as Katie mentioned, that gives you some credibility with your readership. In terms of some of the entries that we've made in the past, and there should be one there, Jennifer, from last year that was selected, and it's a story that won honorable mention in the technical writing category, written by Scarlett Hagens on our staff. Again, it was chosen by all the members on our staff as some of the best work that we did from 2014. Some of the other factors that went into that, it was a real high priority industry issue. It addressed a problem through technology, and Scarlett did a really great job of transitioning between paragraphs and tying that story together in what was really an interesting topic. And we think that that is part of what's necessary. I mean, you're trying to appeal to your reader, but you're also trying to appeal to the person that's judging that category. So a lot of those same factors will apply to that. But as you can see, she also had a really nice graphic that went with that. So that was an important part as well. We support LPC and its mission in a lot of different ways, including through membership, participation in the organization, and also entering the contest. So entering the contest is one way that we support the organization, and we'll continue to do that. And I'd be glad to answer any questions when we get to the end of everybody's presentation. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. Okay, last but not least, we have Ann Kimmey from Cultivate Agency here today to talk to us about their process.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. Kind of coming from a different perspective of an agency side, Cultivate is a full-service marketing communications firm. We have about 8 employees on staff with a full design team, and we really use the contest for a couple different reasons. Most of our clients are either breeders or associations or ag service companies or checkoff related organizations. So we use it to continue to for professional development on our staff and to grow our client relations. So I think that's really important of how we look at it. We look at it in terms of a review of where we went in the past year and how our design has evolved and developed and continue to grow, and allows us to help us grow our design and our younger designers. So if Jennifer, if you'll go forward. Some benefits for the agency involvement, I think you've heard from each of us, is that peer critique. I can't stress how important that peer critique is for us as an agency. It allows us to better ourselves. It allows us to look at what other agencies, and more importantly, it allows us to look at publications. From our perspective, we're looking at publications all the time to recommend to our clients for their media buys. And so we love to look at, from a magazine side of it, what each magazine is doing. So we look at both ends of it. Marketing opportunities. I think Katie said it best and Todd both, of a selling member sellback and a selling perspective. We use the critique contest to market ourselves back on out in the world of clients, and then we use it to also build our client relations. How we select our entries, we do two different processes. We allow everybody on staff to submit. We give them the categories, and we allow everybody on the staff to submit what they feel is their best work and what they think is the best that we've done all year. But we also open it up to our clients, and from a client perspective, the clients need just as much peer review and perspective back. So we ask each of our clients what work that we do for them throughout the year that they felt was their very best, and we let them also bring to the table of, hey, I really want to see how our brochure stacked up to other brochures, or how our annual report stacked up to other annual reports. So we let our clients help us select that process, and then it really just builds good public relations for our clients. That's a great service that we can add back to our work and our account side for to continue building those relations. We also, at the end, once the critiques come out, we look at it to grow for the next year. We look at what we can do to improve our work. It's very important to take that peer review and better yourself and learn from it. And then we also use it when we start building our client budgets for the next year. We can see, hey, this piece was really successful, or wow, this wasn't as successful. Maybe we should really look at it this way. And it allows us to start building those blocks for the next year to continue our growth as an agency as well as for our clients. What I did was I picked an entry. Jennifer, if you want to go to the next slide. I picked an entry that we won with last year, was for the annual report. And what you can see on screen, and it's hard to see it, but it was not your typical annual report. And it had it was a mailer that had an electronic web key on it, and we highlighted the year. This is for a checkoff organization, and then they could pop out this little web key or thumb drive and place it into their computers, and it would take them to an online annual report. So one of the things that I wanted, why we submitted this, was, hey, what type of feedback will we get? Was this successful as an annual report? We know from the client that they loved it. It cut down on their cost in terms of mailing a bulky annual report to all their members, and it drove them to a website where their members could learn and engage more with them. So what you'll see, this was the mailing piece of it. On the next slide, you'll actually see where that annual report was housed, a more in-depth version of that annual report. So when you put that web key in, we could track it of who was going to the annual report, and then we could also look through our analytics on a digital side for an annual report. And I placed up there the web address. If anyone wants to go look at it, you can see the digital version of the annual report. But with that being said, I think looking at picking your entries, this was a great example for us to think outside of the box. And those are the types of things from an agency perspective that I think is great to get peer review from our peers, is thinking outside of the box. And are things successful in the minds of our peers? What we may think is successful as an agency internally, we always love to hear what other people have to say of, yeah, that was a great idea, or no, you could have tweaked it this way or that way. And I think that helps us continue to grow and learn from that aspect of it. That's how we work as an agency. I can't reiterate how important the critique contest is. We've been submitting entries for a better part of, 10 to 15 years now. And you can look at through the years how we've been able to grow as an agency, both professionally, but also we've been able to grow our staff. And I think that's the biggest asset that we can give back to our staff, is giving those the opportunities to showcase their work and learn from it.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Well, does anybody, I haven't seen any questions pop up, so I'm going to give you guys a chance to submit some questions if you have any, and I'm gonna ask you one that that we talked about earlier that I think would be helpful. Diane, can you tell us a little bit, how are judges selected? Is that something?
Yeah, we're constantly looking for judges. In fact, during Fort Worth Stock Show, I was visiting with a freelance journalist with the Fort Worth Star Telegram that I've known for years, and he kind of reports on the ag scene. And I asked him, I said, hey, would you be interested in helping us out? So that's kind of, we try and get people that are close enough to the industry and understand it, and who understand journalism, obviously, for the writing categories, but that, aren't really part of the inner circle, if you will. So we have a database of probably, I'd say there's 100 names on it that we kind of circulate through the years. We don't use the same ones every year by any means. We use some at universities. We do use some LPC alumni, some who have moved on, say somebody like a Jim Jennings who has moved on enough. We're also very careful not to say, those of you who know Jim, he was the Quarter Horse Journal for years. We would try and not give him a category that had a lot of quarter horse entries in it. We try and get him into a different type. So we're always taking names. I know a lot of the board members will have conversations outside of, in other meetings, and we'll ask people if they would be interested in helping. And we're always looking for new ones, because we don't want to burn anybody out year after year, because it's hard. I've had to fill in a couple times, and I take it very, very seriously, and because I know it means a lot to everybody.
Another question that we had is, what are some of the biggest mistakes that judges or the contest officiants see year after year? So maybe some things like logistically, like what are some of the problems that you might see organizing the contest, Diane and Grace, and have the judges commented on things that people kind of tend to do over and over?
Well, I'm going to do a little flip on that. The one thing that is so impressive that I have seen is how the writing is really, really good. And that makes those categories really difficult to judge, because there are no mistakes in them. I mean, the commas are in the right place. In fact, I've looked through them before, and somebody said, hey, read a couple of these and see what you think. And you're just begging to find an apostrophe out of place, so that you can say, well, it's that close. So the writing is really, really good. But mistakes, Good question. Probably, I would say, I'll go back on writing, is tightening them up. Some of these stories tend to be way too long. I mean, it's just like they're just talking just to talk, or write to write. Graphically, some are extremely complex. I mean, they're just a little bit too much. They got too much going on in them. I know there was a catalog a couple years ago, and it made your eyes tired reading it. So sometimes there's just too much. And I think the other thing that I'd like people to do is think outside the box. Look at other industries. As we always say, there's only so many ways you can put a pedigree in a picture and a headline on a page. There's only so many ways. But Anne is a perfect example of some of the work that they enter. It is a little bit different, and that's why they've won so many awards, because they are thinking outside of this little livestock box that we have. So I would say simplify the graphics, and keep up the good writing. I don't know if that helped at all.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from our panel members? Okay. All right. Any other questions out there from anybody? If not, I'll keep asking, but I'd love to hear from you guys on the call.
Jennifer, I'm going to point out one thing that
Yep.
Todd that made me think of when he was speaking. If you trying to figure out what category,
Yeah.
in our guidelines there is again, this is for the writing, but explains the technical kind of examples, feature, human interest, and all. What we have done over the last several years is, if you enter the wrong category, we move you to the correct one. There is no need for you to have gone through all that work to send it in, especially when it was, you had to do all the mounting. We're not that mean. So if it is an obvious wrong category, we're just putting it into the correct one. Now, we would appreciate if you put them in the right one, but we are, and that's obvious ones. If like a 4-color cover entered in a black and white cover, we're going to move you.
Okay.
Because you can be off one number. You might be between category 32 and 33, and you just hit the wrong number.
Right.
So we are moving you into the correct one so that you get a fair trial.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what's some of the criteria that you guys have used for determining whether or not you submit an entry for the most improved publication, the James Flanagan Award category. I know Todd and Katie have both been involved with that too. And if there's anybody who has input that's also on the call, we'd love to hear, what do you look for when entering that category?
Well, in our case, Jennifer, both times that we entered it, we had done a redesign, and we wanted to try to get some observations of the new design and how it compared to the old one. We think it's good in-house, but we also would like to know what folks outside of our building think of that. And on a couple of different occasions, they thought it was pretty good enough to win the Flanagan Award, and we're proud of that. But those were reasons that we entered the contest in those years. Not the contest, that specific category. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and to echo what he said, each time the seed stock has been entered in it, that has been a complete redesign and kind of just a whole magazine overhaul, if you will, where they just went through everything and came up with a new way. But like he said, it's really nice to get an outside opinion and see if your new way is as good as what you think it is in-house.
And I will add to that, a couple of years ago, there was only, I think, one entered in it, and the judge felt that it wasn't even worthy of it being, an automatic winner, because the differences through the years was not significant enough. So it needs to be, there needs to be some pretty big changes. The cover needs to be totally redone, your contents pages, the way you do your headlines, folios. It has to be, you have to be able to notice, and it needs to be progressive. You don't want to step back, but in order to enter that particular category, it does have to you have to see a big change, a big improvement. That's the point.
All right, we've got about 3 minutes left. Are there any final questions or any final thoughts from our panel members today? The 7 seconds of awkward silence in a group is kind of hard on these chats, I think. Well, you know, we really appreciate you guys being a part of these chats. This was a little bit more of a, you know, technical one, just some business that we wanted to make sure that we let our members know about, and we thought this might be kind of a fun way to share some of this new information. We do have plans for our next chat to be on April 20th. Wednesday, April 20th at 10 a.m. and we'll send out more details on the topic. But we would love to know your ideas for topics. We really want to engage all members of your staff, and so we've been thinking on some ideas for some design topics, but would love input on that because we recognize that just as we have a large variety of what we do in our staffs, we also have a large variety of experience levels, and so we don't want to make things too basic or too narrowed in scope, but we would just love to kind of bring people together. And you know, quite honestly, like I enjoy getting to hear your voices and to be able to see you guys on the call and to kind of stay connected throughout the year. And so we're hopeful this can be an inexpensive, free way for you guys to engage with us as an organization, and it can only be as good as your involvement. So we need you guys and your ideas. And I included my email over in the side conversation and would love your input. And if you'd like to be a speaker and have something on your heart that you'd like to chat about, let me know.
Jennifer, I'm going to add one more thing. I'm sorry I forgot about this, but we do have 6 new categories for 3 for e-newsletter and 3 for the blog. So those of you, they're towards the end of the entries. So those are brand new because people have asked for them. And so those of you bloggers and for those who have e-newsletters, there are some categories now. So those will be good to enter as well.
Yeah, good. Great.
That's all I have.
Great. Well, thank you, Diane and Grace, for all of your work with the contest. Logistically, we know it's complicated, requires a lot of time and effort from you, and we're really proud of our members and what they do, and this is a great way to showcase it. So with that, thank you, speakers. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for being on the call, and we'll see you on April 20th.
Jennifer, I think Todd had something.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Jennifer for volunteering her time to put this together because everybody knows we're all busy, but she's taken time out of her schedule to put together what I think is a good service to LPC members.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Agree.
Appreciate your work.
Hey, no problem. It's fun. It's good to see you guys, and we'll talk again soon. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.